feel like I'm constantly cleaning hair off my bathroom floor. At least my Swiffer Sweeper makes it easy. Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths have ultra-thick pads to trap and lock hairs, like a hair magnet. And when I'm finished cleaning up my hair, Sweeper takes care of his too. Now the hair's gone, all thanks to Swiffer. Try Swiffer Sweeper heavy-duty dry cloths. I promise you'll love them or your money back. And also try Swiffer Sweeper Wet to make quick work of tough, sticky messes.
Broadcasting from the tallest tower in the city with that little red light on top. FM 100.5, FM 101.9, and AM 1450. The Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro. FM 100.5 Smyrna. And online at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning. This is Bill Kraus on a beautiful, cool, and expected to be a cold couple of days ahead here in Rutherford County. We are very pleased to have with us this morning one of our two U.S. senators, certainly no stranger to Murfreesboro, who served in the U.S. Congress representing this area for a long, long time, Senator Marsha Blackburn. Good morning, Senator. Do we have Senator Blackburn? We will try again. This will be a telephone connection from her office in Washington, D.C. Certainly life is extraordinarily busy for a U.S. Senator.
I can hear
busy.
You just fine, Bill.
Are we here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, just one moment. Okay, little technical. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing? It's been a long time since we chatted, but it's always a pleasure.
Yes, it has, but it's always good to hear your voice, and thank you so much for letting me join you this morning. I appreciate it.
Since we're limited on time on your schedule, I'd like to throw one question out to you, and this I can have you think for a moment. If this was January 11th, 2025, what would you believe or predict or hope for we would be talking about a year from today?
A year from today, I hope we are talking about how successful getting the Kids Online Safety Act, which is bipartisan legislation Senator Blumenthal and I have worked on, to require social media to design for a duty of care and design for safety for our children. We've got half of the U.S. Senate as co-sponsors on that legislation. And we have over 200 organizations that are supportive of it. Also, I hope that we are talking about the good work that Senator Ossoff and I have done. I'm the top Republican. He's the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Subcommittee on Human Rights. And we've done a tremendous amount of work on the issue of human trafficking and also proper care for our foster children. We have worked diligently to protect women and children, and my hope would be that by this time we've been able to open up the Jeffrey Epstein record, that we have been able to break apart this tangled web of sex traffickers. Epstein has what is turning out to be an international sex trafficking ring. And we're beginning to find out some of the people he was affiliated with before his death in prison. So I hope we're breaking that apart. You know, Bill, human trafficking, according to the Department of Homeland Security, has gone from being a $500 million a year business in 2018 to a $150 billion a year business. It is modern day slavery. Women and children are having their lives wrecked by this. Much of the grooming and recruiting takes place online. That is why we need the Kids Online Safety Act. The other thing I hope that we are celebrating is the Salons Act. And Senator Duckworth and I were working on this program, talking about how you find those signs of domestic abuse and how you get people who are being abused domestically or are being trafficked to proper interventions and care. And Tennessee has a program called Sheer Haven, and it has been successful in our state. It is training and awareness, how to look for signs, how to direct people. This is for estheticians and barbers in our state, and Senator Duckworth and I are pushing that to be a federal program with grants that support it. I also hope that we are celebrating the passage of my Safe Schools Act, which would be a $900 million grant program for hardening of our schools in our country, both public and private schools. And I have to add to that list our veterans. And, of course, Rutherford County, like so many counties in Middle Tennessee, has such a high population of veterans. I've worked diligently on a bipartisan basis to expand and simplify the community care program so that our veterans can take their VA card, go to a doctor in their community, and receive the care that they need from a physician, a provider, a hospital right there in their community, and have the VA pay the bill.
What is so fascinating hearing your shared comments is your efforts to work bipartisan. We're in such a bitter period of time, and the next 10 months is certainly not going to be pleasant politically, but your efforts going beyond the November election to be able to work with others.
Well, that is something that I have always done. As you remember, when I was in the state Senate, it was a bipartisan coalition that I led.
Yes.
In opposition to a state income tax. And I stand solidly on my principles. I am a constitutional conservative. I never shy away from having a conversation with people that want to make the lives of Tennesseans better. And indeed, I visit each of our 95 counties every year to listen to families and farmers and local elected officials and school superintendents and teachers and law enforcement, and find out what the needs of their community are and how we can best help and support them as they meet the needs of those communities.
Are you optimistic about the future despite all of the rhetoric that we're hearing?
I am so optimistic about the future. I think that the American people, and certainly Tennesseans, are paying more attention than ever before to the issues. Tennesseans talk about getting the cost of inflation down, getting the border secured, dealing with the drug trafficking and the human trafficking, getting down the cost of a gallon of gas and the price of a gallon of gas there at the pump, getting the cost of groceries down. They talk about crime in our communities and supporting law enforcement to get crime under control. And Tennesseans are putting quite a bit of attention on those security issues. I told someone the other day, I said, it's like we have the security moms are coming back. They want border security, job security, economic security. They want safe communities. These security moms are really standing up in full force.
When we see a high school students told not to come to school because of the emergency housing of illegal immigrants in New York City, that certainly should bring to home. This could happen in any community anywhere in the United States. And how do we get people to suddenly get angry what's going on?
Well, I want them to get motivated.
Okay, good.
To fix this. Anger and yelling doesn't solve problems, but seeking solutions. And as you well know, and as you and I have talked in times past, robust, respectful, bipartisan debate, that's how you come to solutions.
Correct.
Bipartisan solutions are solutions that are going to last, and that is why I seek to work in that. But when you look at this illegal immigration issue, one of the things that has been so interesting to me is I have listened to people who legally immigrated to the country, listen to people that are going through the legal residency issues and then wanting to work their way toward citizenship. They're the ones that are pushing back and saying, you have to stop this. You have to secure that border. When you've got 300,000 people a month pushing across your border, when you've got 8.5 million that have entered illegally, that's larger than the population of 38 U.S. states. This is of concern to people. And I think this issue with the high school in New York, you know, Bill, what that did, people have seen that on all of the news channels, and they've heard from these parents who were saying, hey, wait a minute, my child is going to be removed from school so that illegal immigrants can come in and use the school facility, and my child is going to be put on remote learning, and they're canceling the winter formal, they're canceling all their sporting events. They're not going to have any of those activities. And by the way, they missed those activities when they were going through the pandemic. So now another year is being taken away from them.
And it's interesting, it was one of the only Republican districts in the New York City area where this was targeted.
That's right. And people are just really unhappy. And I think what it has shown is that the city can come in and take any public facility. I think it's so interesting that some of the people said, look, there are all these office buildings in New York City that are empty. Why don't they go use some of these office buildings that are empty where
Correct.
no one would be displaced, since they're bringing in cots and they're bringing in food? Use one of these buildings. And that's a very valid point. There are government buildings that are empty because people are still working remote. Why didn't they do that? Instead of displacing students and taking them out of their regular school day and the opportunity to have in-person learning and to have those after-school extracurricular activities that truly are the enrichment for these students.
I almost had the nightmare after I heard that story. Maybe they'll go into a hospital and they'll tell the patients that they're going to have to be removed because they have to house the people at the hospital.
Well, actually, when you mention that, you know, we've had an issue at the VA where we have people that are waiting. The wait list for benefits and services from the VA has crept up in the past few months to over 400,000.
Wow.
400,000. And I'm on the Senate VA committee, and when President Trump was in office, before he left, we had worked that wait list down to under 25,000. And now it is back up to over 400,000 people that are awaiting services. And what we found out was that some of the VA facilities had been required to take in those that had illegally immigrated into the country and provide health services for them, while you have the veterans that cannot get the services they need.
And that's where motivation is so important. How would you tell our folks in Rutherford County not only to listen to the media, but to be able to determine what is correct, appropriate, objective information versus incorrect, possibly manipulated information, and to become involved, be sure not only to vote, but to be sure to vote on knowing what you're voting for?
Well, that's exactly right. And an educated citizenry is one of the principles that our founders wanted to see. People who were involved in their community. And I would encourage your listeners, they can stay in touch with me at blackburn.senate.gov. Every week I put out a newsletter. and we cover issues that are taking place here in D.C. that are important to Tennesseans, information they would want to know. I also encourage people to watch C-SPAN and watch some of our hearings. I'm on the Senate Finance Committee.
Well, you're to be highly complimented. The amount of appearances and reports and information that you're providing is just so phenomenal. I think the people of Tennessee certainly can say thank you, Senator Blackburn, because you are there. You're not only representing this wonderful state, but you're also advising the people of the state things to be aware, things to be alert, and things to be involved in.
Absolutely. And I hope they'll stay in touch with us.
Well, keep up the great work. We look forward to hopefully next time you're in Rutherford County to have you at WGNS and have a good sit-down visit. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
I would love to do that. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye now.
Keep up the great work. We will now have a word from one of our sponsors.
Finding that missing shin guard, remembering whether it's a home or away game, getting the right kid to the right playing field on the right day. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with auto owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. We work with independent agents who keep insurance simple so you can worry about more important things, like not being that fan.
Oh, come on, ref!
That's simple human sense.
Rayburn Insurance in Smyrna.
Come see me, Rick Hall, at Rayburn Insurance in downtown Smyrna today.
Hey guys, if you notice a lack of energy, motivation, and drive, it could be low T. Be sure to schedule your health assessment at Low T Center. They offer the convenience of physician-monitored, self-inject, at-home testosterone treatments with an average payment of $150 a month, cash pay, including labs and medication. If you don't live near a Low T Center or just need the convenience of at-home treatment, Low T Center makes it easy, shipping treatments directly to you. Go to lowtcenter.com now to book your appointment online. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
This Monday, join Laverne in honoring the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. at the annual MLK ceremony at 10. Esteemed speakers, Pastor Joe E. Randall Jr. and Commissioner Hope Oliver will share powerful messages.
Join Laverne this Monday for the MLK ceremony. Laverne City Hall at 10 a.m.
The MLK ceremony. Let's come together, celebrate unity, and remember the dream.
On Monday morning, in the boardroom of the Laverne City Hall on Murfreesboro Road.
Boots, Boots, Boots. French's Shoes and Boots is your hometown store for the latest in Southern style and unbeatable prices. French's famous bargain racks are loaded with deals on name brand footwear priced 70 to 90% below retail. Come see why French's has been Tennessee's favorite place to shop since 1903. Find that new favorite pair you'll be proud to wear at French's Shoes and Boots.
Shop at French's Shoes and Boots.
1837 South Church Street in Murfreesboro.
And now for today's winning Cash 3 and Cash 4 numbers from the Tennessee Lottery. The first number is the number you just thought of. The second number is the number you would have picked. The third number is the day of your wedding anniversary. And the fourth number
They're only lucky numbers if you decide to play them. Cash 3 and Cash 4, only from the Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing fun. Please play responsibly.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control and the law offices of John Day.
This is a paid legal ad.
When a family member is lost as a result of someone else's negligence, the grief can be unbearable. It also leaves you with a lot of questions like, how did this happen? Who's responsible? And is my family going to be okay? That's a lot to go through, but with the law offices of John Day on your side, you don't have to go through any of it alone. We understand what you're going through, and we have the experience to get the answers, justice, and compensation your family deserves. Call the law offices of John Day.
Lots happening in our community, and you'll know all about it from WGNS Good Neighbor Events. The Little Shop of Horrors opens this Friday at the Center for the Arts in Uptown Murfreesboro. Shows at 7:30 Friday and Saturday nights, and 2 o'clock matinees on Sunday. That's the Little Shop of Horrors, through the 21st at the Center for the Arts, 110 West College in Uptown Murfreesboro. A tribute to the Allman Brothers Band, 7:30 Saturday night at the Art Center of Cannon County in neighboring Woodbury. That's 7:30 this Saturday night. Don't forget the buy one, get one free monthly and yearly passes to SportsCom and the Patterson Community Center continues through this coming Sunday. It all ends Sunday afternoon at 5. Don't throw away Old Glory. Bring your American flag to WGNS and let the girls from BSA Troop 2019 at Trinity United Methodist Church retire it with dignity. Plus, we also recycle Bibles. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Good neighbor weather. A wind advisory will go into effect your Friday morning. Sunny skies this afternoon, high in the upper 50s. Tonight, slight chance for rain late, increasing clouds, a low near 40. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 43.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric. Seriously looking at solar power generation? MTE offers a free consultation with an energy expert and has an entire library of educational resources. To learn more, visit mte.com/prosolar.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Hi, Bill Kraus again on the Roundtable on a wonderful Thursday morning, and we had the opportunity to hear some remarks from one of our two U.S. senators, Senator Marsha Blackburn, who many of you may remember was our Congress representative for a number of years, and previous to that in the state Senate. Senator Blackburn did not have the time to be with us the full hour because certainly things are rather busy on a hourly by hourly basis. So for the remainder of the time, I'm going to consider this time as I would in American government, which I teach a number of courses at Motlow State and Columbia State. So if I were looking at the class and asked the students to comment, I would initially raise the question, first of all, whenever you share an opinion politically, and I stress this strongly, whenever you share an opinion that is your personal opinion, and please always have an opinion, please always think and be prepared to share that thought. Always begin the comment with, in my opinion. In my opinion. Too many times when we get involved, and we're going to see this in the months ahead with this political election coming up in 2024, we will hear people make statements as if it was fact. And if you disagreed with the fact, you were wrong. You were misunderstanding. You were not aware. So always, and it really softens any type of personal feeling, personal behavior, personal anger, that if you say, in my opinion, or as I see it, or as I understand it. The second point we would be sharing in American government. There are facts and there are facts. There are facts that may be an interpretation. There are facts that may be how a person looks at something. I could take a handful of people and stand on an overpass on I-24 on Church Street. And I could have people looking at the underpass, vehicles going north and going south on I-24. And I would ask them, what do you see? Everybody's at the same location. Everybody has the same fact. Everybody has the same observation. But one person may say, I see a lot of red cars, and the red cars seem to be going faster than the non-red cars. Other people will say the truckers are very safe and will always move over. And everybody will have a different interpretation. That's the basis of the understanding of political science. That's the basis of the understanding of our American government. Part of the study of American government is looking back at our history. And our history, and it's a wonderful history, has been passed down from generation to generation. How much of it was fact? How much of it was interpretation? How much of it was because you had far less communications abilities to exchange between person to person, between state to state? So you look at the history, and a lot of the history is almost like our religious belief. We have faith in who we are, and we have faith in what we have become. There is no question, in my opinion, there is no question that this has been the most outstanding, phenomenal experience in the governance of people called this United States government. We began certainly as 13 loosely knit colonies with about 3 million people who decided to break away from the government 2,000 miles away in London, and we became a new country. 13 different colonies. Colonies that were in the north that basically were manufacturing and production. Colonies in the south that were basically agriculture and rural. And they came together really for one initial purpose. The initial purpose was to unite together to defend against the British coming back again. Also to unite together to prevent other countries from snapping off parts of the colonies. Spain was in control of Florida. You had the French in Canada. So there were a number of European countries that were looking at these new territories in North America and seeing potential. So the initial purpose was to come together for the common defense. And with the common defense, one of the most immediate steps was to eliminate tariffs so that products could be crossed over each of the new state lines without having to pay a tax, without having to pay a tariff. It is rather interesting to know that the men who met in Philadelphia in 1789 to create the Constitution, they worked in summertime, no air conditioning, no fans, extraordinarily hot and humid, and it got to a particular point that they decided that they were almost done with the Constitution, but they left the most important items out. That is the protection of freedom, the protection of democracy, the protection of rights, the protection of liberties. And they decided to go home, tend their farms, go home, produce their product, go home, sell their goods, and reconvene shortly after back in Philadelphia. And they decided to amend the Constitution in order to address the various human rights. And that's where the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, came forth. And it is rather interesting, and I will share this with students. They were men who worked on priorities, and you take a look at the first priority was the First Amendment: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of the right to assemble, freedom of the right to petition their government. And these freedoms resulted in a significant amount of discussion by those who were convening to adopt the new amendments to the Constitution. And probably without question, there has been more court interpretations, Supreme Court interpretations of the First Amendment than all of the other 9 amendments combined. Because the freedom of speech, what is the freedom of speech? Can we say anything and everything we want to say? Well, there are certain limits, and one of the things we learn in American government is that the control of freedom of speech, and I'll use more the preference of hate speech, which we have certainly seen a lot of it in recent years with the advent of social media. Hate speech is something less controlled by the government and more controlled by the private institutions, employers, schools, for example. I cannot stand up in a classroom and say hate speech. Would my First Amendment rights be affected? It would be overridden by the rules and regulations and behavior policy of the college that I work for. And employers specifically have full control over what should or should not be spoken. Sometimes we will hear academics say, well, there's academic freedom, but a university, a college, a public school, a private school has the obligation to maintain a certain standard to protect people on the free speech, and that particularly affects hate speech. So we want to be sure that the freedom of speech has always been protected. You wonder in terms of when people talk and when people share ideas, are they doing it because they want to convince other people? Are they doing it because they want to justify in their own minds that what I believe in is what I believe is the appropriate way? There will be many, many discussions and comments and considerations. You hear it on the press. You certainly see it in social media about opinions and candidates and people in positions. Every year we usually say this, or every political year we usually say this. This, no doubt, will be one of the worst years in political rhetoric that we have ever experienced. I heard this over many, many decades in every presidential election. But truly, in my opinion, I would believe that 2024 is going to be far more severe. Severe in the sense that the issues, and as we heard Senator Blackburn make some reference to the issues, each and every one bring out a specific feeling and a comment. We talk about the border crisis, and we talk about the millions of people. We can look at the border crisis in a little different way. You know, whenever I am reading or observing something about immigration, I still think of the base poem on the base of the Statue of Liberty by Emma Lazarus that says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your hungry masses yearning to be free." And I wonder, you know, has somebody attempted to apply that to the millions coming across the border? There is a difference. There is a difference. Millions of people have come to this country. In fact, the roots of this country have been people who have immigrated legally from all over the world with not only an economic opportunity aspiration, but they wanted to become part of the American family. The word assimilation, that is how quickly and how deeply and how committed a family, a man, a woman, a child, will become an American not only in practice, but an American in belief. Assimilation has always been a major policy of the government, both federal and state, and to some degree local, in terms of education, in terms of cultural awareness, in terms of providing support and providing assistance to people who have recently arrived to this country. We look at Middle Tennessee, and we have had a lot of legal immigration in this country. We look, for example, in Nashville. In Nashville, that many people do not realize, has the largest Kurdish population anywhere outside the Middle East except for Turkey or Iraq or parts of Iran. Over 17,000 people who have immigrated to the Middle Tennessee area from what's known as the Kurds, who are not a country by themselves, but are basically people who live in Turkey, Iran, Iraq, primarily in the Middle Eastern region. But actually, when you take a look, the assimilation of Kurdish people into the mainstream of America has been very significant. I don't know how many of you will travel Nolensville Road in Nashville, and it is probably as international of street with stores and restaurants reflecting many, many different cultures. But what it all means is that when we look and live in this wonderful country, we begin to think that how can we assimilate people? The Border Patrol has certainly been overworked. The whole border situation has been really a crisis, to put it mildly. What will happen after the inauguration of a president in January 2025? What kind of process, if it's a particular objective, to deport the many, many people who came here illegally? What kind of process will that be? What kind of litigation will be on the Constitution pertaining to immigration? We normally do not realize, and taught in American government, is that the Constitution, believe it or not, and this is something very important, protects all people in the United States, not just citizens, all people. If you're a non-American citizen in the United States and you are here legally and you have not broken a law, the laws and regulations that govern an American citizen will govern you as well. So we have to be very mindful that freedom and liberty, once you're within the confines of the United States, the geographical area known as the United States, you will have the constitutional protection. We go from the border and we talk about the economy. And the economy certainly has always been a kitchen table, bread and butter issue when people decide to go to the polls. They ask themselves, how do I feel today? Am I better off today than I was 4 years ago? Much of the economy is related to the psychological aspects of how people feel. If you are seeing less money in your paycheck or money that is not worth the same amount as it may have been 3 or 4 years ago, and you go to the store, you go to the restaurant, you go to the gas station, and you're paying more, absolutely. I was just thinking the other day, I went to a barber shop. I do that once in a while to get a haircut, and I thought how much I paid for a haircut on Monday afternoon versus what I did a short 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And you take an item like a haircut. You take an item like postage stamps. I think the price is going back up, is going to be, nearly 70 cents or 70 cents a stamp. You know, I go back and it doesn't seem like the dark ages, 3 cents, 5 cents to mail a stamp. And yet, we pay. So the question of the economy, how people will vote. There is no question that the inflation that we experienced was directly related to the cost of energy. Not only does it cost more money to deliver a product from its production or its farm to the store, to the shelf, not only is it more expensive to use the petroleum cost in the making of product, of course it does. But on the other hand, it has had a significant impact on what set the inflation rate up to the highest in over 40 years last year. We'll be right back after these words.
Become an emergency medical technician with specialized training at the TCAT campus in Murfreesboro.
I'll complete my EMT certification in just 4 months.
TCAT is a leader in technical education and industry training.
TCAT will help me with job placement, too.
An EMT serves a vital role in the healthcare team of experts throughout Rutherford County and across the nation.
TCAT is helping me follow my goal into becoming an EMT with their emergency medical technology program.
I'll be an EMT thanks to TCAT.
Learn more at tcatmurfreesboro.edu.
Hi, this is Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates. You might know me as the voice of the Blue Raiders, but I want to be your trusted advisor in real estate. Whether you're buying or selling, it's time to choose Chip. Do you have a growing family and need to upsize? Are you an empty nester now and need to downsize? Are you thinking of selling your current home but just worried you can't find something else? Well, it's time to choose Chip. I'm looking to be your trusted advisor in real estate. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates.
This is Kim Dunaway from Sunshine Nutrition Center. You hear me on Monday mornings at 7:20 talking about how to lead a healthier lifestyle. We carry supplements, personal care, and grocery items at both our Murfreesboro and Smyrna locations, family owned and operated since 1989.
Here at Bud's Tire, we make buying Michelin tires simpler. I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We offer a straightforward approach to service, including nationwide warranties with every purchase. Stop in today to see our full lineup of Michelin and BF Goodrich tires. For whatever you drive, Michelin and BF Goodrich have a tire to fit any need. Bud's Tire Pros, hassle-free, guaranteed. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstireprostn.com.
Del Walmsley and the Wealth Cycle. This is the wealth cycle that I've taught for 30 years. Buy one house, 10 houses, an apartment, 2 apartments, 8, 20, 500 units, 1,000 units, 2,000, 5,000 units. And as you keep putting the money and the profits back in, you become one of those rich people. And much quicker than you'd even believe. Learn Del's Wealth Cycle at GiveMeTotalFreedom.com.
GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. Use promo code 2023. Save 60%. Code 2023. GiveMeTotalFreedom.com. GiveMeTotalFreedom.com.
When severe weather strikes, we break in.
Tornado warning for central Rutherford County.
Our own meteorologist giving you a complete Rutherford County forecast.
So you should be in shelter already in
There is no safer place in the storm. News Radio WGNS.
Getting your guaranteed maximum refund with TaxSlayer feels like saddling up and chasing down.
Look at that sweet moolah!
That big old cash cow.
Look at all that money!
File for free with TaxSlayer Simply Free and get your guaranteed maximum refund. TaxSlayer. File fearlessly.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
This is Bill Kraus on the final segment of the Roundtable this morning, and talking about American government. We started off this morning with Senator Marsha Blackburn, who shared a few moments from Washington, D.C., and basically she was sharing what she hoped would be achieved a year from today. A year from today is going to go very quickly, and there are going to be many mountains and valleys that we cross in terms of political rhetoric, in terms of decision-making. You know what will bring home to concern about government is April 15th, Income Tax Day. You know, you begin now receiving your statements, your W-2s, your W-9s, your 1040s, and so forth, as you begin to prepare for your taxes. And you begin to say, am I getting value received? I'm not so sure how I would recommend or suggest how people evaluate the quality and quantity of their government. And this not only applies to the federal government, this certainly applies to state government, and this applies to local government. We have had here on the air quite often the superintendents, school directors of our local school districts, mayors, members of council, city managers, and so forth. In fact, next week we'll be having the mayor of Laverne and the new police chief to get their perspective of how things are going in Laverne. But as you begin to evaluate, how do you evaluate quality? We hear a lot about foreign policy. We hear about certainly the Ukraine and the Middle East and Israel, etc. And how do we make decisions? What is the information we're getting? Is the information correct? I think one of the more interesting things of information misstep were the economic reports, the labor reports here a couple of days ago, when it said that the employment increased by a certain number of people. The question turned out later that when they did an analysis and reevaluation, the number was not correct, the percentage was not correct. In fact, there may have even been a loss or deficit of jobs versus the fact of an increase in jobs. So how we weigh the massive amount of information that we read, we see, we hear, we talk about how government works. I always, having been in city government for 25 years, sometime in the past, I would always find out that people's response to local government was if they hit a pothole that morning and almost threw out the alignment of their car based upon the pothole that had not been responded to yet. Even something like a pothole can create an image of government. Even something as a traffic light that is not working can impose. Even the attitude that you may be dealing with a public employee whose attitude was, I'm here, you're there, I count, you're just a number, you're just an input into the computer, that becomes certainly of concern. So going back to the federal government and going back to the visit of Senator Blackburn earlier, we look at foreign policy. We begin to say, what should the role of the United States be in the world? And I will ask students, and the students, and we have a wonderful, wonderful group of men and women, young men and women, returning to school, men and women, and so forth. who take American government. It's not taught as a civics class. It's not taught as dates, times, places, and names. It's taught of, can you have the feel, if you had a magic wand to make this nation perfect or close to perfect, what would you do? And would it be beyond just words? Yes, we want equality for all. Yes, we want freedom and liberty for each and every person, each and every citizen. Yes, we want equal opportunity. But once you get beyond those words, what do they actually mean? What do they mean? We take a look at protesting, and protest is certainly a basic ingredient in the Constitution and in the practices of the United States. But what does protest mean? What's the fine line between protest and a riot? What's the fine line of protest and making it highly inconvenient for people to get to work, people to get to school, people to get to a hospital, police cars getting to an emergency? So how do we draw those lines? Well, we have to rely very heavily on interpretation. And interpretation is done by courts. If you've ever had, most hopefully you haven't, but I can't say you have not, had a traffic citation. And, excuse me, and you go to court. That judge sitting in his robes or her robes in the court is going to make a decision based upon the information that is provided to the judge. If it's a case far more serious than a violation of a traffic code, you may have attorneys both representing the city or the plaintiff and representing the defendant. How do you determine facts? How do you determine information? And I always take a look at how courts decide, probably not much different than if you are having an argument with a friend, a spouse, a child, and each person is making their points. How do you determine who is right and who is wrong? How do you compromise if compromise is an opportunity to pursue? And the query becomes, courts have to make the same decision. We will see the United States Supreme Court very, very busy in the months ahead. Busy because of the political turmoil, busy because of appeals that will be forthcoming on a number of cases. Without going into the details of the cases, for example, that were brought against President Trump, the question is, there will be some extraordinarily interesting constitutional interpretations coming out of these cases. Even the definition of what's presidential immunity. Watch this carefully. Not necessarily because the Trump attorneys have represented it, but it raises an issue that's been in the Constitution since its inception. What decisions can a president of the United States make, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, an independent, whether it's good guy, bad guy, however you want to determine it? What immunity, freedom against practice of a case against them, can a president make or be exposed to as a result of a case brought against them while they are as president? And the immunity clause in the Constitution really reflects that a president is immune from prosecution from the traditional court system until it has gone before the United States Senate. And the Senate, through impeachment, initially has that opportunity. So it's a unique and rare case where the Senate will play a role as a court determining the validity of the charges, the validity of the case, and make a determination. Of course, and it goes without saying that there would be political implications of that decision-making, not necessarily the merits of the case or the non-merits of the case. So you particularly have, these are the items in the Constitution called presidential immunity that are continually interpreted. I have asked students, for example, should we have a new Constitution? And unfortunately, I hear the fact that they look upon the Constitution, too many people look upon the Constitution as a set of laws and a set of rules and a set of regulations. With some exceptions, that's not the case. The Constitution, which makes it some of the most beautiful, I have to say, some of the most successful forms of governance, is the fact that it's an interpretive document. And for some who will look upon the Bible as an interpretive document rather than a particular document that is, this is the way it is without any question, the Constitution is an interpretive document subject to the review and determination by the members of the U.S. Supreme Court, ultimately if it gets to the court by method of appeal of lower courts. And you get the question, how do 9 people make that decision? Most hopefully, and I've done a lot of literature review on this, most hopefully, even if you believe the Supreme Court has not made an appropriate interpretation of a case, you take a look back and you specifically say, well, was it done on a legal basis or was it done on a personal, philosophical basis? And the law, and for those of you who study the law, for those of you who practice the law, is a very interpretive opportunity and activity. To practice the opportunity to make decisions, you're looking at case law. You will have case law supporting you. You will have case law opposing you. And you make the best decision. So in the study of American government, so much of what we do within the legislative, the Congress, within the executive, the presidency, and within the courts, the Supreme Court, are done on an interpretive basis, making decisions. Isn't that really part of life itself? Are we not interpreting events around us, and then we make decisions? If you're looking at 2 job offers provided to you, you will interpret, you will make a judgment based upon what you believe is either the short-term positiveness of one versus the long-range implication of one. So literally you want to be sure. You want to be sure that when we look at government, so much of it is interpretive. Yes, there are laws. Some laws you cannot interpret. I always take a look at the presidency, and the Constitution is very, very strong on the point that the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States must be born in the United States, must be born as a U.S. citizen in the United States. And this has actually preempted a number of people who have wanted to run and could not run because of this one very strong point. It went maybe 30, 35, 40 years ago before the Supreme Court that you had George Romney, the father of the senator from Utah, Mitt Romney. George Romney was the governor of the state of Michigan. And George Romney was seeking the Republican nomination for president, I have to say somewhere in the 60s, one of the elections in the 60s. And a group of people filed against George Romney. You cannot run for president of the United States because you were not born in the United States. And what happened was, when they determined George Romney was the son of missionaries who were in Mexico at that particular time when George was born in Mexico, because his mother, as an American citizen, was a missionary in Mexico and had her son in Mexico. Well, the Supreme Court looked at that and said, born in the United States, and they added to the interpretation, or born as an American citizen, but perhaps not in the United States at the time of birth. So, everything has an interpretation, and Romney was allowed to stay on the ballot and stay on the primary. Of course, he didn't go too far, but it just shows the interpretation. Another case that I will share with students, and it happened a number of years ago, and I think it also ties in with the First Amendment. And the First Amendment, in terms of there should be, quote, a separation between church and state. That means that the church, religion, does not play a role in the public sector operation. And there was a case in a small city in New Jersey. And New Jersey, the city council in that particular city, was considering putting crossing guards in front of their public schools. And it's a time, and this is quite a few years ago, it's a time when traffic was starting to become heavy, and children had to cross streets that were becoming busier and busier, and consequently the city council wanted to be sure that children were protected on their way to and from school. So the city council voted to allow crossing guards to be in front of public schools. The parochial school in that community, who also had children going to and from schools, requested the city council to add to their list of crossing guards protection of the children going to parochial school. The city council said, no, we're following the First Amendment. There should be separation between church and state. We cannot fund crossing guards to assist students in a religiously based school. The city attorney advised them they'd be, actually the city attorney supported them, and the diocese appealed this case through the court process. It ultimately went to the Supreme Court, very much of a landmark decision, and the Supreme Court specifically said, as long as these children going to parochial school are crossing public streets and are in the public right-of-way, they have not entered into the grounds and the facility of the parochial school. The city has the responsibility to give them the equal protection of a crossing guard as they would students going to a public school. So you find an interpretation such as that. We almost related to that, had an interesting potential Supreme Court case, but it disappeared fairly quickly during the height of the pandemic. Actually in our neighboring state of Kentucky, where Kentucky basically had prohibited people from going to church in order to avoid COVID spreading very quickly. And they said you cannot go to church on Sunday or Wednesday or whatever day you're going, Saturday, etc. And as a result, there was no protest at that particular point, no protest. And as a result, you literally had a potential court case, which was primary of constitutional protection. The right of people going to church and practice their religion, First Amendment, or the right of the state of Kentucky to prohibit this because of the health, safety, and welfare of the people in a pandemic. And ultimately, the state of Kentucky backed off on it. But that would have been very much an interesting case of testing the Constitution, that does the health, safety, and welfare, and don't forget those three words. Those are the three words that determine where and how and what a government can do, federal, state, or local, to implement policy and implement a procedure, is to protect the health, safety, and welfare. How do we define that? How do we interpret that? Well, back to the courts. Did it affect the health of the community? Did it affect the safety of the community? Did it affect the welfare of the community? And, you know, you can define health and you can define safety, but how interpretive is the word welfare? How do you protect the better well-being, the welfare of the public, and what kind of policy can you put into effect? And you begin to think about that for a moment or two, and you begin to think, boy, you could almost apply any type of policy, any type of action, because we are protecting the health, safety, and welfare of our public we serve. We look at foreign policy, and the question is, what is the role of the American government? Well, up until the late 1980s, when we were in the middle of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, we specifically had said we're there to, quote, oppose them. I want you all to be thinking. I want you to be involved. I want you to be participatory. I want you to look at this year as an opportunity to make our government, make our community, make our beloved nation so much better than what we've been in the past. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe. Stay warm on Monday.